Okay, just going to keep going through the checklist. So the next thing is Scorpion. So Scorpion, once again, these are created with factories right here. I think I went through that earlier as an example of the factory. The Scorpion spawner, well, we'll go over that later, but the Scorpion spawner is what creates the factories, or creates the Scorpions. The Scorpion does not use collision. So how does it check for poison mushrooms? It has the same kind of thing where it only checks one per cell. So, sorry, that's the initialize, not the update. So in the move update, we have the current frame and then the frames to move on cell, which, depends on the speed. But, if it was moving one per frame, then it would take, 16 to go across, but that depends on the speed. So basically you're counting up, and then once you reach the middle, and you're just moving, by your speed, and then whichever direction you're going, and you're counting up, you're not even thinking. And then when you reach a new cell, you have to check, hey, is there a mushroom here? So, well, you have to update the column too. But you say, hey, is there a mushroom? And in the inspect, you're also checking for the boundaries. So are you, on the left bound or the right bound? And is there a mushroom here? So in the P grid manager, I have a pointer to the grid manager, which once again, the factory is given this pointer, and then it can just pass this pointer to every Scorpion pretty easily. So it'd say, hey, grid manager, can I get the mushroom at row in the one right in front of me? If it's not null, then I'm going to poison it, which once again is just setting poison to true and then setting the frame +4, which will make it, green or whatever. Just looking more into this get mushroom at, all this is doing is returning, from the mushroom field, that row, column, row column, that coordinate is, hey, is there a mushroom here? Or you're just getting that mushroom. So that is the inspect for the Scorpion. It does not use collision, and it only checks one per frame. Right, so let's go to Spider is next. Spider, as you saw earlier in the game, in the walkthrough, it moves correctly. The update is similar, where it only checks once per cell if there is a mushroom there. So we're counting. Then we say, hey, is there a mushroom here? If there is a mushroom there, if it's left or right, mark for destroy. Or if there's a mushroom there, go ahead and eat it, which if we go to eat, it's literally just destroying that mushroom, and we have to remember to remove it from the mushroom field as well. Back in the update. So how does it do the movement? It basically chooses a destination row and will only change the direction once it has reached that destination row. So we update the row and column based on the direction once we've moved up and the X and Y direction change. But if we reach the destination row, then we can change the direction, which is choosing a new row. We choose a new random row from within the spider's range, max and min, and the bottom. So it's basically just choosing a new random row that is going to be my next destination row. And then if that's below me, the Y direction is 1, or if it's above me, it's -1. And then I return that new row. And then I also, in change direction, I choose vertical or diagonal. So am I going to be vertical, which would be straight up and down, or am I going to go diagonally to reach this destination row? So I'm just choosing a row randomly, and I'm choosing if I'm going to go straight down or up, or if I'm going to diagonally reach it. And I only do that, I move, I only check for the mushroom once every frame, and then I only change directions if I've reached that destination row. So that is how the spider works. It has a corresponding factory as well. Flea has a corresponding factory. I'll click into it just to prove it. And object pool. It does not create overlapping mushrooms from the demonstration. I hope that was able to come through. Well, it's excuse me, very similar, where it counts up, that frame counter. Since it's always moving down, you can just subtract row -1 when you reach the new cell. You check the boundary and you check to place a mushroom. So, man, I need some water. Drop mushroom check, which depends on the drop rate, which is set in the wave settings, which we'll go over in a second. We get the mushroom, and we create a mushroom there from the mushroom factory, only if it's null pointer. So, even if the mushroom check says, hey, you should put a mushroom here, if there's already a mushroom there, it's not going to put one there. It's just going to keep going. So there's no overlapping mushrooms. And yes, that is how the Flea works. Pretty simple, I think. Let me go back. Yeah, pretty simple. Bullet hit, it has a health, right? Because you have to hit it twice, so that's the only thing that's kind of different about the Flea. Yep. Critter generators. So, right, how do I do this efficiently? Each of the critters has a spawner, which once again is, these are all created in the game entity manager. So the game manager creates the game entity manager, and then the game entity manager creates all of the spawners. So just diving into the scorpion spawner, for instance, the ones that have, that can be set, that are based on like timers, have those different, the strategy pattern. So I went over that before, but sorry, I'm trying to find my critter spawners. So like for the Flea spawner, there's the spawn checks, whether it's active or inactive. I think I went over that earlier, and the scorpion in active or inactive, and actually the spider has that as well, active or inactive. Also, that's with the head spawning in the bottom of the player area. That's how it's checking that, as well as it has the active or inactive. So if we just dive into the scorpion, for instance, once you initialize the wave settings, which I will go over in a second, the scorpion spawner is set to active. So right here, if it's on, then the scorpion is set to active. Then you check to spawn a new scorpion. This depends on the strategy, right? Like if it's off, it's just not going to do anything. But if it is active, then you're going to start the timer. Starting the timer literally just sets the alarm based on the frequency, which once again is received from the wave data. And once that alarm is hit, you spawn the new scorpion, which is, just getting the spawner, a spawn column, and creating that scorpion. And then you check to spawn a new scorpion. So, once again, if this is on, you're going to active, you're going to start the timer. But if it's off, you're not going to start the timer. So that's how the scorpion is working. It's just constantly, if it's on, it's just constantly setting this, this timer over and over. I went over the Flea earlier. Once again, it checks, it has the different concrete strategies for whether it's on or off. And the spawner is happening like that. For the head, that's the only other one that's a little bit more interesting. Critter spawners, centipede spawner. So basically, when you're initializing the wave settings for this guy, where is that? Here is where you spawn the centipedes at the top, by the way. You just however many there are, you're just going to spawn that many at the top. If this is active, then once again, it's the same kind of thing where you're going to set that strategy to be on. And you're going to set the alarm to be time before heads and player area spawn. So basically, I think I said it was like, what did I have? it was like 10 seconds or something, you know, if they haven't killed all of the centipedes in 10 seconds or so, then you are going to spawn a centipede. So you're going to add to the heads and player area, you're going to spawn the solo head in the player area, and you're going to check to spawn new head again. Once again, this depends on the concrete strategy. So if it's active and the current heads is less than the count, you're going to... this is just checking that I don't set the alarm multiple times. So if it's not already going, go ahead and reset it. And this is the time between head spawning. So basically, you know, the idea is, you know, you wait 15 seconds. If you still haven't killed the thing, then you're going to start spawning the heads down below, you know, once every, like, you know, whatever it is, 7 seconds. You know, if you still haven't killed everything, it's going to keep spawning them. So that is basically how that works. I hope that's sufficient. I feel like I might have gone over that a little fast, but I think that makes sense. Basically, the spawners are using strategy patterns to be efficient about whether I should check to spawn or not. Wave control. Right, let's do wave. Here's my wave data, notepad. Actually, let me just go through how this works first. So in the game manager, once again, kind of the head of everything, I create a new wave manager right at the beginning. And then I say, hey, wave manager, let's load data from my file. So what I'm doing is I'm creating this new object called a parser. I did this just, I mean, for no real reason other than I just kind of wanted this object to exist right at the beginning of the game and then be gone, because it does one thing and then it's done. So we create this wave data parser. You initialize the counter, the current line being processed, the current wave being processed, and you have a pointer to the wave manager. And then you call the parse method. It opens this wave data file and it goes through each section. So this is a wave section, right? And all of this corresponds to parsing all of that. So we parse the wave line, which is just the wave line up top. And then we parse each one of these things. And I have a different function for each of them. So if it's an active, so on or off, it's a parse line active. Or if it's, you know, a float or an int, you have different corresponding things, and you have the string of what it's supposed to be. So for instance, if it's a parse line active, you check the label first, which makes sure that the string, you know, I said, okay, this one should be scorpion frequency. So it makes sure that that actually lines up. So you get the user label. You have to check that the user label is actually equal to, so using a string compare to the label it should be. And if it's not, you do this print error, which is just a console message. It's not an actual error, but it gives this little line and it tells you specifically what's wrong. So all of those are pretty similar, and it just reads in the data. If you have like a float, for instance, it processes, it gets the float from the file as a string. It tries to convert it to a float. If it can't convert it, then it says, hey, this is not a float, you need to fix it. And yes, so this is just like setting things. Right, and then, so let me just see how that works. So like if I go in here and I misspell spider, so I say spide speed, it's not going to be, it's going to be kind of buried, but it's going to tell me, hey, that's not right, because when I do that check label, it's going to break. Oh, come on, give it a second. So while that's loading, what happens is that wave data is a struct of all of the information. So what you're doing in the wave data parser is putting all of that information in a wave section, and then, so it tries to run, but it messes up. I do have to scroll back through all of these leaks, which is pretty disgusting. But right here you can find it. It says data era spider speed label spider speed 2 misformatted. Should be spider speed at line 6. So I tried to make the errors as helpful as possible, and you could go in and test more of them. But to be fair, you do have to scroll back up before all of these leaks to see the errors, which is not ideal. So basically it's loading all this stuff into a wave section, which is a wave data struct. And then you're just going to say wave manager, put in your wave data array at this position, this wave section. So I overloaded the assignment operator, so it just makes sure that you set all of these things to be equal. And then in the wave manager, there's a the wave data array, which is just an array of wave data, and you're just loading all the information is in the parser. And then when the parser is done, close the file and delete itself. Or close the file here and then delete itself. So that is the data parser, and then you have all the information in the wave manager. Now, how does that actually get distributed? I guess that goes back to the centipede heads. So critters, critter factories, centipede head factory. So in the centipede head factory, when you recycle a centipede head, you oh, that's create, sorry. When you recycle one, you erase it. And I actually think I do it in the actual centipede now that I'm thinking about it. Where does that happen? Oh, yes. Wait. Yes, okay. So when I hit the bullet, I say, hey, centipede head factory, check the centipede head count. And what it does there is it decrements the head count because I just hit one. And then it says, okay, if we're less than or equal to 0, we need to end the wave. So then we do the end of wave callback from the game manager. It cancels the spawner alarm, so nothing else is spawned. It increments the wave number of the player. This is just checking that if we've reached the end of the wave data, that we just end the game and go back to the attractor. But if we're all good to go, then we just start the next wave. So we start the wave number, which we just incremented, so it will be the next one. So what happens in start wave? You send out the wave data to the spawners. So well, first you destroy all the active critters, which is like looping through those active vectors that I showed earlier. And then you send out the wave data to the spawners. So that calls the game and that makes sure that the game entity manager, because the game entity manager owns the spawners. So I want to send it out there. So then for each of the spawners, centipede, spider, scorpion, and flea, I just call initialize wave settings, and using that wave data from the corresponding array back in the wave manager. So I just have all the information there, and I just hand it out to whoever needs it. For instance, the scorpion, I get whether it's active, get the speed and the frequency, and in each of these things, it just what happened here? Send out wave data. Initialize, that's where I wanted to go. You just set the different parameters in the spawner, and based on whether it's active or not, you can set the appropriate strategy pattern. So that's kind of how the wave data is controlled. How am I looking on time for this one? Okay, I might pause this video just to keep them shorter and continue on in a second.